My name is Liam. I'm 24 now. But 5 years ago, I was just a scared, confused 19-year-old boy sitting alone in a dark, silent room in a small village on the coast of Ireland. No one believed I could change my life. And honestly, I didn't either. Let me tell you the truth that people don't talk about. I wasn't born in a rich home. I didn't go to an English school. I didn't travel. I didn't have English-speaking friends. I didn't even have confidence to say one full sentence in English. Not even one. And the worst part? I hated myself every time I tried. I remember once, I saw a job posting online for a remote customer support role. It paid more in 1 month than my father made in 3. I clicked apply, and they asked just one thing: fluent in English, speaking plus writing. I closed the tab, without even trying, because I knew I couldn't. That was the day I sat on the edge of my bed, clenched my fists, and said something I had never said before in my life. Liam, this ends today. You will learn English, no matter what. And from that moment, I started my journey. Not from school, not from coaching, not from some big city, but from my own home, with no one but myself. This is not a story about someone who got lucky. This is not a story about someone who was talented. This is a story about someone who was desperate to change. So if you are like me, scared, stuck, silent, I'm telling you, there is a way. And it begins like this. Step 1. I created a war room for English. My home, my rules, my world. The first thing I realized, if I wanted to learn English, I had to live in English. But how? I had no teacher, no guide, no support. So I decided, my room will become my school. And not just a normal school, a war room. A place where failure wasn't an option. I took a big notebook and wrote on the first page, this is the place where Liam becomes fluent in English. I didn't understand much, but I knew one thing. My environment had to change. So I took every single item in my small room and gave it an English name. Yes, every item. Chair, chair, table, table, door, door, light, light, pen, pen. I put small papers everywhere with names written in English. So every time I touched something, I read the English word. And slowly, I started thinking in English. My pillow had a note. Good night, Liam. My mirror had a note. You can speak English. My cupboard said, open, learn, win. I didn't care if it looked silly. I didn't care if my brother laughed at me. I didn't care if no one understood me. Because I was building my world. A world where I was not afraid of English. A world where English was not a stranger anymore. And every morning when I woke up, I whispered to myself, this is not just a room. This is the room where I change my life. I started using the mirror to talk to myself. Yes, just me and my reflection. I would say basic sentences like, hello, Liam, how are you today? Today, I will learn 5 new words. You are improving. Don't give up. Did I make mistakes? Yes, every single day. Did I feel embarrassed? Of course. But you know what? There was no one watching. No one judging. No one laughing. Just me. And my English. And that became my biggest strength. Because when you're alone, you are free to be bad. And when you're free to be bad, you finally start getting better. For 30 days, I didn't care about grammar. I didn't care about fancy words. I didn't care about being perfect. I just focused on building an emotional connection with English. I started to love the language, not fear it. I told myself stories in English. I described things around me. I asked myself questions and tried to answer in simple words. And slowly, English started to feel like a part of me. Step 2. I turned my ears into weapons. The sound of English became my music. After 1 month inside my English war room, I had started to feel a little more comfortable. I could say simple sentences. I had written new words on every object. I had even started talking to myself in the mirror. But then, I hit a wall. I knew the words, but I didn't understand them when someone else said them. One day, I played a random video clip in English, just a short conversation from a movie. And within seconds, I felt lost. The words flew too fast. The pronunciation was different. I couldn't catch anything. That night, I looked at the ceiling and thought, what's the point of learning English if I can't understand anyone? I felt stupid again, but I didn't quit, because that was the old Liam. The new Liam was a fighter. So I created a new mission. Liam, you will train your ears. English will become music to your mind. From the next day, I started listening. Not passively, not while scrolling, not while doing other things. I mean deep listening, focused listening, hungry listening. Every morning I played a short English video, but not random ones. I only chose videos that just real conversations. And here's what I did. And this is the part nobody tells you. I listened to the same video 10 times. Yes, 10 times. The first time, I understood nothing. The second time, I picked 2 or 3 words. The third time, I paused after every sentence and repeated it. The fourth time, I started feeling the rhythm. By the 10th time, I could almost guess what the next sentence would be. And something magical happened. One day I was walking in my garden. I wasn't thinking about English. But suddenly, I heard a voice in my head say, "That's a beautiful flower." I stopped walking. I looked around, and I smiled. Because that sentence was from the video I had listened to 10 times, and now it was living inside me. I wasn't memorizing. I was absorbing. I was learning like a child learns, not by rules, but by rhythm. I started listening everywhere. While brushing my teeth, while cooking my eggs, while taking a bath, while folding clothes, while just sitting alone in the evening. My brain was drinking English, and I made a rule. No more silence in my home, only English in my ears. But let me be clear, I didn't understand everything. Not at all. There were hundreds of phrases I didn't get, but I didn't stop and translate. I just listened and felt. And every week, my ears got sharper. I noticed how people changed their tone when asking questions. I noticed how they used words like kinda instead of kind of. I noticed how I'm going to became I'm gonna. These things were not in textbooks. They were in the sound of real life. And I fell in love with English again. Because now, it was no longer just a subject. It was music. It was rhythm. It was a heartbeat. Step 3. I started writing my life in English, one broken sentence at a time. Now that I had filled my room with English objects, now that my ears were becoming sharper every day, I realized something very important. I can understand more than I can express. And that hurt. Because in my mind, I wanted to say so much. But when I opened my mouth, nothing came. And I thought, maybe I should just wait until I become perfect. But then a question hit me. What if you never become perfect, Liam? Will you stay silent forever? That night, I took a deep breath, opened my notebook, and wrote 3 words. Today, I tried. That was the first English sentence I ever wrote about myself. It was simple, it was broken, it was emotional, and it was mine. So I made a decision that changed everything. I will write one page every day, in English, about my own life. Not to impress anyone, not to be correct, just to express. The first day I wrote, "Today I eat egg. I feel good. My English not best, but I do it." It was full of mistakes. But do you know how I felt after writing that? Free. Because finally, I was using English as a real language, not as a school subject. Every morning I wrote, what I did yesterday, what I plan to do today. One thing I was feeling, and one thing I wanted to say in English but didn't know how to. I didn't look for big vocabulary. I didn't Google translations. I didn't care about commas or spelling. I just wrote, from my heart. And slowly, those broken sentences started walking, then running, then dancing. I still remember the first time I described my dream in English. I wrote, "One day I want to travel to Canada and help people. I want to work online. I want to use my English. I want to feel proud." I read it again and again, not because it was perfect, but because it was me. And when I read those words out loud to myself, something changed. I wasn't just a boy learning English anymore. I was becoming a boy who could think in English. And that is when I realized, your grammar is not your power. Your truth is your power. So, if you ask me today what helped me become better at English, I will say this. I wrote my truth every day, and slowly, English became my truth too. Step 4. I built my English wall, a place where my mistakes lived proudly. By now, I had created my English war room, trained my ears like a soldier, and started writing my life in broken English every single day. But then, something unexpected happened. I started feeling lost again. Not because I was failing, but because I didn't know how to measure my progress. I kept asking myself, "Liam, how do you know you're improving?" And that question started haunting me. Because improvement in English is invisible in the beginning. You don't see it like muscles. You don't feel it like temperature. You don't even hear it clearly in your voice. And that's when the fear came back. The fear of being stuck. So one night, I sat on the floor, looked at my wall, the same wall where I had once written the words, "You can speak English." And I thought, what if this wall becomes my teacher? The next morning, I started building something powerful. I called it the English Wall. I took chart papers, old newspapers, pages from broken notebooks, and I turned one full wall in my room into a living, breathing journal of my English journey. But this was not a place to show off. This was a place to show my mistakes. Yes, mistakes. Because I realized something most people never understand. If you're hiding your mistakes, you're hiding your progress. So every time I didn't understand a sentence, every time I misused a word, every time I wrote something wrong in my journal, I wrote it down on a paper and pinned it to the wall. And next to it, I wrote the correct version. It looked like this. I am go to shop. I am going to the shop. He don't like it. He doesn't like it. I no have money. I don't have money. And guess what? Instead of feeling ashamed, I felt proud, because my wall was not a wall of failure. It was a wall of proof. Proof that I was trying. Proof that I was learning. Proof that I was growing. Every time I walked into my room, my eyes would go to one of those pinned pages. And without thinking, I would read it out loud. Again. And again. And something strange happened. Those mistakes became my lessons. And those lessons became my language. I also added new sections on the wall. New words I learned this week. phrases that sound cool, sentences I heard but didn't understand. My favorite line from a movie. My room was now more than a room. It was a living museum of my progress. Every sentence on the wall had a story. Every correction had a struggle. Every word had sweat behind it. This was not decoration. This was dedication. And I made a rule. This wall will never stay empty. Every mistake is welcome, because every mistake means I'm moving forward. Step 5. I created my English shadow, and he walked with me everywhere. By this point, English was becoming a part of my room, my ears, my writing, even my walls. But when I stepped out of my home, I became silent again. I remember walking to the market one evening. There was a tourist couple asking for directions. I knew the answer. I wanted to help. But I said nothing. I stood there like a ghost, watching someone else go and talk to them in English, with confidence. That night I felt like a failure again. Why, Liam? Why are you confident only inside your home? What happens outside? And then I understood. At home, I was in control. But outside, my fear came back. Because there were people, eyes, judgment. I needed to find a way to bring my English with me, not just at home, but everywhere I go. That's when I created something that changed everything. I created my English shadow. I told myself, from now on, everywhere you walk, your shadow will speak in English. Let me explain. I started describing everything I saw around me in English, not out loud, but in my mind. Like this. I walk outside. In my mind, I say, the sun is bright today. I feel warm. That old man is smiling. I pass by a shop. I think, I need to buy eggs. The woman is wearing a red scarf. That boy is laughing. I sit in the bus. I say silently, there are 12 people in this bus. I'm going to the library. I want to learn 2 new words today. It felt strange at first, but slowly, this voice became a habit. It was like an invisible friend, always talking to me in English, helping me stay sharp, helping me build fluency. And guess what? I didn't need a book. I didn't need a teacher. I didn't need the internet. I just needed to use the world around me and describe it. This became my daily English workout. No matter where I was, in the kitchen, on the road, waiting in line, sitting alone, watching rain. I was talking to myself silently in English. And every time I did that, I was training my brain to think in English, not translate, not memorize, just think. And when you can think in a language, you don't fear it anymore. It becomes a part of your identity. One day, my friend asked me in my native language, "What are you thinking about?" And without realizing, I answered in English. I was just noticing the sky. That's when I knew. My shadow had entered my mind. I was no longer switching between languages. English was becoming natural. Step 6. I faced a real person, and I didn't run this time. So far, my world was changing inside me. My room had become my classroom. My ears had become tools. My notebook was my mirror, and my shadow, my silent English partner. But here's what I didn't tell anyone. I had never spoken to a real person in English. Not once. I had practiced. I had written. I had listened. But I had never actually faced someone with eyes, expressions, reactions, and tried to hold a conversation. And I was scared. Not of English. I was scared of being seen. What if I freeze? What if I forget every word? What if they laugh? What if I open my mouth and nothing comes out? One Sunday afternoon, I went to a small bookstore in the city. It was a rare trip for me. I usually avoided going out too far, but I had read that there was a section for used English books at a discount. As I entered, I saw a young woman near the counter. She was not from my country. I heard her asking the shopkeeper in English, "Do you have any books for English learners? I'm just trying to improve." My heart started pounding. She was just like me. I felt an intense pull, like the universe was telling me, "Go, Liam. Now is the moment. Speak." But my feet froze. I pretended to look at a shelf. But then, something happened. She turned to me and said, kindly, "Hi, do you know if they have grammar books here?" Time slowed down. My mind screamed, "Run!" But something deeper whispered, "This is what you've been preparing for." So I looked her in the eyes and said slowly, "Yes, there, on top, that shelf, I think I saw a grammar book there." She smiled. She said, "Thank you," and walked over. And I stood there, in silence, shaking. But not because I failed. I was shaking because I had just spoken English to a real person for the first time in my life. It was broken. It was slow. It was not perfect. But it was real. I stayed in the bookstore for another hour. Not because I needed more books, but because I'd found something more important than grammar: courage. From that day, I made a new mission. Every week, I would talk to one real person in English, even if it was just one sentence, even if I stammered, even if my voice cracked. I didn't wait for opportunities. I created them. At a cafe, I would ask, "Can I have a black coffee, please?" At the market, I asked a foreign tourist, "Are you looking for something? I can help." At the bus stop, I said to a visitor, "Do you need directions?" Every time I did it, I shook. But every time I did it, I grew. And slowly, I started trusting my voice. Because no amount of writing or listening can replace the feeling of using English with a living human being. And I want you to understand this. Your first conversation won't be beautiful, but it will be unforgettable. Step 7. I made English my morning breath, a ritual that changed everything. After that first real conversation in the bookstore, something inside me shifted. I had faced my fear, and it didn't destroy me. But I also knew that one brave moment wasn't enough. Because confidence is not a moment, it's a habit. And habits are built every single day. So I asked myself, "Liam, if English is truly your second language now, why are you still starting your day in your first language?" That question bothered me. Because every morning I woke up, stretched, yawned, and thought in my native tongue. And then I waited until later in the day to start practicing English. But that wasn't real transformation. That was still part-time effort. I decided to change that. From the next day, I made a new promise. From the moment I open my eyes in the morning, I will breathe in English. I called it morning English breath. And let me tell you what I did. As soon as I opened my eyes, before touching my phone, before getting up, I said softly, "Good morning, Liam. Today is a new day. You are becoming better. Let's learn something beautiful." That was my prayer, my anchor, my first mental step in English. Then, as I brushed my teeth, I looked in the mirror and spoke out loud. "I feel tired, but strong. The weather is cold today. I will write something new. I will not give up." I described every morning action out loud, like I was narrating a short film of my life. While making tea, I'm boiling water. The steam looks beautiful. While opening the window, fresh air feels nice today. While folding my blanket, Time to clean. A tidy room gives me energy. And then, the most important part. I opened my English journal and wrote 3 simple sentences about how I felt that morning. Not difficult ones, just honest ones. Like, I feel nervous today. I am excited to try something new. I dreamt something strange last night. I didn't correct them. I didn't care about mistakes, because it was not about grammar. It was about presence. This became my English morning ritual, my mental shower. Because just like you brush your teeth to remove dirt, you need to speak English in the morning to remove fear. And here's the magic. When you start your day in English, your brain becomes ready to live in English for the rest of the day. The vocabulary I used in the morning? I remembered it in the afternoon. The sentences I practiced while cooking? I used them later while messaging a friend online. It was like setting the tone, tuning my brain like a guitar so it could sing in English all day long. This one habit changed the rhythm of my entire journey. Because I was no longer practicing English once a day. I was living it from the moment I woke up. And that, my friend, is when English stops being a subject and starts becoming a part of your soul. Step 8. I built a relationship with English, like it was a person who believed in me. Every morning now, I woke up and greeted English. Yes, greeted it. Not as a subject, not as a skill, not as a task, but like it was a friend. Because by now, English had become more than a language. It had become the only voice in my life that didn't judge me. People had doubted me. My own relatives laughed at my English. My classmates once said, "Don't even try, Liam." Even my younger cousin mocked my pronunciation once. But English, it never rejected me. When I made mistakes, it stayed. When I forgot words, it waited. When I gave up, it whispered, "Try again." And one night, sitting alone in my room, I wrote something I had never written before. Dear English, thank you for not leaving me. You are the only one I talk to who listens. I had tears in my eyes as I wrote that, because I wasn't just learning English anymore. I was healing through English. It became the mirror I could talk to when no one else would listen. It became the friend that walked beside me in silence. It became the doorway to the world I had always been afraid to enter. That's when I made the most important decision of all. Liam, stop studying English like a student. Start loving English like a relationship. And from that moment, I changed the way I spent time with English. Not 30 minutes a day, not 1 hour, all day, but without pressure, without expectations, like a friend you enjoy being with. When I felt sad, I wrote my pain in English. When I watched a movie, I paid attention to how they expressed emotion in English. When I listened to a song, I imagined what the words felt like. When I saw a quote online, I wrote it on my wall like a message from a friend. And slowly, my connection to English became emotional. I wasn't afraid of mistakes anymore. Because you don't need to be perfect to be loved by a friend. You just need to show up. One day, I saw a job opportunity online again. It said, remote role. English required. Earlier, I would have closed the page, but this time, I didn't. I didn't apply, not yet. But I left the page open. I looked at it and said, I'm not ready yet, but I'm getting there, and I won't be scared next time. That was the moment I knew. I didn't fear English anymore. I trusted it. And that is the biggest milestone in any learner's life. Step 9. I taught someone else and realized how much I had grown. It had been over a year since I started my journey. From the boy who couldn't finish a sentence, to the man who now thinks in English, lives in English, and writes his emotions in English. But I still didn't feel like a fluent speaker. Because I hadn't done one thing yet. I hadn't passed it forward. One evening, my neighbor's little brother came to me with a notebook. His name was Kevin. He was 14, shy, and scared, just like I used to be. He said softly, "Liam, my teacher said I'm weak in English. My dad said you speak English now. Can you help me?" At first, I wanted to say no, because I didn't think I was good enough to teach. But then I remembered I wasn't teaching him from a textbook. I was teaching him from my story. So I said, "Yes, but not like school. I will show you my way." We sat together under the tree behind our building. I brought my first English notebook, the one that had the line, "Today, I tried." I opened the first page, showed him my broken sentences, and said, "Do you see this? This was me. I started just like you. You don't need to be smart. You just need to be honest." His eyes lit up. I didn't tell him to memorize vocabulary. Instead, I gave him a challenge. I said, "Every day, tell me one feeling in English, just one sentence about your day." The first day, he said, "I am sad." The second day, "I am happy. I play football." The third day, "I am tired. I don't like homework." He started slowly, but he started. And while helping him, I saw myself. I saw how far I had come. I remembered how I used to say, "I eat egg." I feel good now I was helping someone else. Not as a fluent speaker, but as someone who had walked the road and returned with light for someone else. That's when I realized something. You don't need to wait until you're perfect to inspire someone. Even your broken English can become someone else's hope. And by teaching Kevin, I saw my own growth, not on paper, not in test scores, but in his eyes, in the way he smiled after making a sentence. I was no longer just a learner. I had become someone who could give English. And giving it felt even better than learning it. Step 10. I finally stood on a global stage, and my voice didn't shake. Helping Kevin was the first time I truly saw myself, not as a learner, but as a leader. But I wasn't done yet, because there was still one thing left to do. One thing that scared me more than anything else. Speak in front of the world. I'm not talking about speaking to one person, not chatting online, not texting, not small talk in a bookstore. I mean standing up in front of cameras, faces, eyes, expectations, and telling my story in English. And the opportunity came when I least expected it. I was working part-time in a small co-working space in the city. They were organizing a webinar series called Stories That Inspire. One of the organizers had overheard me helping Kevin with his English near the building. She walked up to me and asked, "Hey, Liam, someone told me you learned English all by yourself. Is that true?" I nodded quietly. "Would you be willing to share your story at our next event? Online, just 10 minutes. We'll stream it globally. People need to hear this." My throat dried up. All the voices from my past started screaming in my head again. What if you forget your words? What if they laugh? What if you're not good enough? But then, I thought about everything I had been through. The early mornings with English as my breath. The sticky notes on every wall. The mirror talks. The moments of shaking hands in the bookstore. The eyes of a young boy named Kevin. And I whispered to myself, "This is what you've been preparing for. This is your final test. Speak." I said yes. I didn't sleep the night before. I wrote my speech in English 5 times. Then I tore it up. I didn't want it to be perfect. I wanted it to be honest. The next evening, I sat in front of my old laptop, camera on, lights dim. A timer blinked on the screen. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then it was just me and the world. I took a breath and spoke. Hello, my name is Liam. I'm from a small town in Ireland. And 5 years ago, I couldn't say one full sentence in English. Not one. My voice was steady. I didn't have money. I didn't have a teacher. I didn't have a big dream. But I had pain. I had silence. And I was tired of being afraid. I told them everything. The day I wrote, "Today I tried," in my notebook. The day I stuck grammar mistakes on my wall. The day I listened to one sentence 10 times to understand it. The day I told a tourist where the grammar books were. I made friends with English. I spoke to my shadow. I told my secrets to a blank page. I didn't study English. I became English. And then I looked into the camera and said, "You don't need a classroom to change your life. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to begin. Right where you are." 10 minutes passed, but it felt like a lifetime. When the talk ended, I sat back in my chair and cried. Not because I was weak, because for the first time in my life, I had heard my own voice, and it sounded strong. After that day, everything changed. People started messaging me from all over the world. A girl in Brazil wrote, "Your story gave me courage." A boy in Kenya said, "I never liked English until I heard you." A mother from Pakistan messaged, "My son watches your video daily. You are his hero." I couldn't believe it. Me? Liam? The same boy who once said, "I want go America doctor" in front of a laughing class? Now people were calling me a voice of hope. 1 month after that speech, I was offered a remote job with an international education company. They said, "We don't care about your degree. We care about your story. We want you to lead a new project to help young people learn English online, the way you did. Can you join?" The salary? More than anything I had ever imagined. I didn't say yes immediately. I asked them, "Are you sure?" "I'm not the best English speaker." They replied, "Exactly. That's why you're perfect, because you learned it the real way." And I said yes. Today, I wake up and speak to students in 5 different countries, from my small, quiet home. I lead workshops. I give talks. I help those who once sat where I did, alone, silent, scared. But more than anything, I live with peace. Because English didn't just give me a language. It gave me a new life. A life where I don't hide anymore. A life where I'm not afraid to speak. A life where I know I am enough. So if you're watching this video now, and you feel like English is too hard, too scary, too late, please hear me. You don't need to be born confident. You just need to try, and then try again. Start with your wall. Start with your mirror. Start with your notebook. Start with one sentence. Because one day, that sentence will become a story, and that story will become your voice. And maybe, just maybe, the world is waiting to hear your voice too. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that it's never too late to change, then please don't leave without subscribing. Because this channel is not just about English. It's about transformation. It's about courage. It's about people like you, who are ready to grow no matter where they start from. On this channel, you won't find shortcuts. You'll find real stories, real emotions, real change. And every video here is made with one purpose: to help you become the person the world tried to silence. So if you're ready to rise, if you're ready to believe again, then hit that subscribe button. Not for me, for the future you, who speaks with power, lives with pride, and never gives up.